Well, the Super Bowl is in the rearview mirror, so that officially marks the end of another football season. But if you're already jonesing for more content, Mitch, I think we can provide a solution for that problem. Are you ready to jump back in and talk some football?
Here's the thing, Greg. Let's think of it this way, right? We are 190 days from August 25th. So let's think of this as more of like a preseason preview type of show, right? Let's start getting into next season mode already.
Well, let's go. The preview of the preseason preview. It's coming up next. Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome back to View from the West podcast. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong. I'm joined, as always, by the mayor of Morrison, Mitch Stormer. Mitch, we're back in the podcast booth here, the virtual podcast booth.
Yeah.
We're ready to talk some football. But Mitch, before we jump into high school football, do you call a holding penalty in the Super Bowl that late in the game?
I mean, it was a hold. There's no question about it. It's a tough way to go. And it's kind of the same thing in the Bengals game. You know, you have a late call there, puts the Chiefs in a good position to win. And it's a crummy way to lose. But at the same time, the game is not defined by one play all the time. So you can think all you like that the Chiefs kind of snuck away with one 2 weeks in a row, I guess. But it was a hold, unfortunately. So good to see. We complain a lot about missed calls, right? And then we're going to complain about too many calls. Like let's figure it out. So great game, awesome game, exciting stuff. So you hate to see it end like that, but it was a hold.
Yep. It was a debate in our household, but I think the general consensus was, he did grab the jersey. So regardless of what time it is in the game, you hate to see it happen, but you got to make that call. Anyway, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. That's, like we said, that's in the past now. We're moving into March Madness time, but Mitch, we're not a basketball podcast. We're here to talk Illinois high school football.
You know what? If we were, we'd have a heck of a lot of good basketball teams to talk about. You got Princeton, who's like 28-1 or something. You've got Moline, who's top ranked in the state. All the Western Big Six, really. So we would have a really good or a lot of good teams to talk about if we were a basketball podcast.
To our listeners down in Quincy, the Blue Devils got a pretty good squad this year as well. So
also, right. if you've never seen what that pregame environment looks like,
oh my gosh, goodness. It's the best.
Man.
Yeah.
I never when we worked at KBQC, I never went to Quincy for a basketball game. So man, that's amazing.
No, I've never been to Quincy in my life for anything, because we would always get videos sent to us. Chris Dewar is the best. He's the man down in Quincy. So whenever we needed highlights, he could send them. So that would save us the trip. But I always kind of thought, like, man, I wish we had to go, because I want to see that place in person. But I think that Shuck or DOB, they could hook us up, right? We could get tickets to a Quincy basketball game.
Oh yeah, you'd think so. I think we're on their good graces, right?
I absolutely.
It's a tough ticket though, and it's a tough ticket there.
I know. No kidding. All right. Well, Mitch, this week's episode, we're jumping in. We're talking a little bit of off-season updates. We're gonna, do a little bit of, housekeeping, seeing what we've missed in the past couple months when we've been on our little hiatus here. We're gonna talk about the conference shifting, new conference alignments, non-conference matchups, a lot of those to talk about that we've been hearing, lately, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. We got some big time college commitments to talk about that have been signed recently. So that, like I said, that's our off-season update episode for this week. Next week is our big one. Mitch, can you believe it's going to be our third annual Best in the West Awards episode? Now, I say third annual, we've actually squeezed in 3 within a 2.5-year stretch, because the spring football season was our debut. So either way, it will be our third Best in the West Awards episode. We'll talk best players, coaches, teams, all the stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to, kind of reach back into my memory here to jog up some of the good things that we saw and the really great season that we had this past season. So yeah, excited to get back into that and relive some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, you're in luck. I've been keeping a running spreadsheet where there's been stats and numbers compiled, so not all is lost. We won't have to start from scratch, but
Yeah.
yeah, we will have to refresh the old memory bank and get back into what was the best of our football season in 2022. So,
Mhm.
Mitch, let's go over and look through what's been going on. The high school
Yep.
landscape and in football is always changing, and
Yep.
this off season is no different. A lot has happened. We'll jump in. We'll start in the Western Big Six, and it's unfortunate news that we have to start on. Alleman High School has already announced they're going to sit out of the 11-man varsity football schedule for 2023. Mitch, we don't need to dive into all of the Alleman, issues over the last few years. That's been pretty well documented, but numbers are low. It is what it is. The facts are what they are, and they do not feel like they can safely go out and compete in the Western Big Six. So they are planning to play a JV schedule, but it's a bummer, that they're obviously, when you talk about the Western Big Six, all these teams have been together for so long, and to see Alleman struggling and to not be able to compete, it just feels like, the conference is a little less than, because there's not that full, conference slate, which you're used to.
Yeah, like you said, it is unfortunate, and I feel like Alleman as a school has certainly taken a turn for the better from where they were, right? And hopefully this is just kind of a one-off reset for them. Obviously, coming off of a season where they got their first win in a while, had one of the best players that we've ever seen in the Quad Cities on their roster. Um, and so, yeah, when you think about it, Greg, too, back when I was in high school, I mean, and some people who listen to this show will know this. Some of the younger folks, the players won't. I mean, Alleman was the team, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
back in the day,
Yep.
for a lot of sports, they were the team. And I think we've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure Alleman is the last Western Big Six team to go to a state final, and it wasn't all that long ago.
Yeah, as a member of the Western Big Six, yeah, they were in the state championship game in the early 2000s. I can't remember the exact year, but
they 04. Was that an Addison Driscoll game?
They went in 04 and they went again a few years later.
Okay.
So they've been there twice, and it's not, I mean, that's a few years removed now, obviously, but it's not that ancient history. I wouldn't want to think so.
Yeah, right. So again, it's an unfortunate thing. It seems like I just said, that things are turning a corner for Alleman as a school. But yeah, making that tough decision to not play, not having enough players, gives them a year to reset, play that JV schedule, get some younger kids some experience, and hopefully in that time get some more interest and really make a full varsity team for next year. So yeah, looking forward to the future for Alleman. Getting them back in the fold for one, and two, as we'll talk about here in a minute, maybe they're exploring some options to get out of the Western Big Six. I think that would be good for them. There's certainly places for them that could fit. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, for this upcoming season, opens up weeks, right, for all the Western Big Six teams. Some teams have filled exciting matchups that I cannot wait for, and some we're still waiting to get word on, but what's the saying, when a window closes, a door opens, something like that, right? So it gives
so poetic, Mitch. So poetic.
I know. It's that Ambrose education.
There you go.
It gives these teams that remain an opportunity to schedule an out of conference. They already usually have 2 out of conference games. Now they get a third out of conference game. So yeah, the opportunity's there, because that we're going to be talking about a lot of shifting around and conference realignment. There's some opportunities out there that I think are really going to be, that could be fun, as we'll talk about with Princeton and Sterling here in a minute. So, but all the best to Alleman, and as they reset here.
Mitch, do you, being that you are the Notre Dame fan that you are, do you have a Charles Jagasaw Notre Dame jersey ready to go for your future Irish lineman?
Yeah, I don't yet. He's in a tough spot. They need a new O-line coach. So, yeah, things are changing there in South Bend. So he'll be a part of that future. Whoever is coaching, he'll be a part of it. There's no doubt about that.
I got to imagine if you get one of those jerseys, it's got to be the first ever lineman jersey that you would have bought in your life.
Yeah, it would be better than my Mitch Trubisky Bears jersey. That's for
sure. One time, my son ran a 5K road race, and one of the door prizes he won, I say won with air quotes, was a Mitch Trubisky jersey. And I'm not sure. I'm never sure he was winning that one when he walked away with it. But, man.
Hey, he took a Matt Nagy offense to the playoffs twice. That should be a statue.
That's
in Chicago.
Better times in Chicago ahead. Better times.
Yeah, well, and, now that we say that, Super Bowl winner Matt Nagy.
Oh, now we're done. We've gone too far. So, Mitch, you talked about the non-conference games that set themselves up now with Alleman sitting out in 2023. The marquee matchup that we saw right away, Princeton and Sterling in week 5. That is a fun matchup any year. I mean, you don't know exactly what these teams bring back. We'll dive into that, in a few months, but either way, that is an exciting matchup on paper.
If that game were this past year, oh man.
I know.
What a matchup that would have been. But these two teams have proven year in, year out that they bring back a good squad. I fully anticipate Princeton to be really, really good. We know some of their names that are going to be back. They'll look different, but they looked different coming into this year, and they were still a fantastic team. Sterling's just going to reload. So, yeah, and again, this is one of those things. It's one of those opportunities that's out there. You make the most out of a bad situation, because Princeton's in the same thing with St. Bede leaving with TRAC, which we'll get into in a minute.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd love to see it. Two really good programs that don't play a lot, getting on the gridiron in a mid-season game. They're going to be in top form. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Another cool, crossover game for our, local coverage area. Geneseo and Mendota meeting up in week 7. So that's an interesting Western Big Six and Three Rivers crossover again there in that one. That's a good matchup to see late in the season. The tricky part is we have not, for these teams trying to fill this, void in their schedule, is that most non-conference games are happening either weeks 1, 2, and 3. Maybe occasionally you get like a week 9. The Western Big Six used to always have their other non-conference date late in the season, week 9. But if you're Rock Island or Moline and UT, I don't know exactly what weeks they fall, but if they're mid-season, teams are playing conference games, or out of state, they're playing district games somewhere. So it's got to be hard to find that right fit at this point.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the weeks are. I want to say Rock Island is week 4. I think I do remember that specifically from Coach Hammer. So yeah, I don't envy these guys trying to find a game, but again, there's a lot of schools that are in this predicament, and so it's just a matter of finding the right spot, making sure it's within a good enough reasonable way to travel, things of that nature. So yeah, we still got some time here. We've seen games materialize in less time than 190 days, so still gonna hold out hope. Maybe they have something in the works just haven't announced yet. So more to come on that from the Rock Island, Moline, and UT standpoint.
Yep, for sure. We, if we hear anything, if we get any updates, we'll definitely put them out, on Twitter. View from West Pond.
We're trying to play matchmaker here, Greg. We're trying.
I love it. I love it.
There's a couple things that were talked about that just didn't work out. So, we're trying our best to get some of these matchups that we think would be fun. And it might come down to it's a last resort type of thing. So we'll wait and see.
Yep. Let's jump into the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. There is a lot of shuffling going on here as well. Part of that shuffling involves Riverdale, and the good news is Riverdale is coming back to an 11-man football schedule in 2023. They sat out last season, which left an open date for Three Rivers teams. So that got kind of interesting with teams having to fill. Some teams weren't able to find an opponent, so they took the bye week or took the forfeit win.
Mm-hmm.
But before things could settle back in with Riverdale coming back and filling their void in the schedule, we have another conference shakeup. St. Bede announced they are leaving the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. They're leaving after 9 years in the league. They announced they'll be joining the new Chicago Prairie Football League, which will start up. They've also been accepted into the Tri-County Conference in every other sport except football. So interesting move. They cited that they felt like it was the best for their school, for their program at this time, for a competitive standpoint. And, when you start looking around the enrollments, they were on the smaller end. They were playing a 1A, they're a 1A playoff team. And a lot of the teams you're going to find in the Three Rivers are 2A, 3A. There are some exceptions, obviously, but they were on the smaller end. So, they made the decision they felt like they had to make, but it does kind of leave the Three Rivers in a tough spot here.
Yeah, and St. Bede coming off probably two of their best seasons in recent history,
Yep.
with John Brady leading the way. That was a fun team to cover. So, yeah, and I don't remember, I put you on the spot here, if you remember who else is in that Chicago Prairie Football League. I don't remember.
I believe that Seneca and maybe Dwight and Marquette.
Yeah, okay, yep.
And then it gets really interesting because it's some bigger schools that came out of the Chicagoland area that was from another conference shakeup up that way. So, St. Bede and Marquette will be playing some significant enrollment size schools, not necessarily football powerhouse schools, but some of the enrollment disparity is pretty big between these schools. So it's an interesting conference fit, but
yeah, when that was first announced that we and I'm going to say that we broke that, Greg.
Yeah, there you go.
When St. Bede was leaving, I almost thought that was maybe going to open Ottawa Marquette to come back. I was kind of hopeful for that, but it didn't work out that way, and but it is what it is. So, yeah, now the TRAC is in an interesting spot, just like the Western Big Six, where they once again have to find non-conference games for this season, but then they also have an open team, so to speak, if somebody wants to move into the TRAC, right, for future seasons.
Yeah. So, Mitch, getting back to your question, Westmont is also in this conference, Elmwood Park, and then the other Ridgewood. So not the 8-man Ridgewood, but there's a bigger suburban Ridgewood school, and that they are pretty big enrollment wise. So again, it's an interesting fit for that conference all the way around. But getting back to, Mitch, who's next for the TRAC? Who do they fill in with? And I think when you start looking down the list of teams in the area that would be a geographic fit, you look at Alleman and Mercer County, right? Those are kind of the leading candidates, I would think.
Well, not only in terms of geographic, significance or relevance, but there's also been maybe some reaching out already.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, I guess I should have said the leading candidates. Those are
right.
Why? Because they have reached out. Yeah.
Right. And beyond that, you might have looked at maybe somebody in the Lincoln Trail, but with what they're doing and their merging, conferences, that takes that out of the way. You're not going to pull anybody from the NUIC, even though you have some previous TRAC members up there. So yeah, they're in a tough spot. But as we just talked about, there's maybe some possibilities here. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be teams that are dropping down to 8-man, that are consolidating. That is a reality that we live in now. So this is not the end of this discussion, even within the TRAC. So, again, as I said earlier, when I don't even remember how I said it, when a window closes, a door opens, something like that. I don't know. I really don't know I really do not know what the saying is. But I don't think this will be the end of this discussion, because we're always going to be faced with this, unfortunately. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let's look at, like we said, Alleman and Mercer County are the leading candidates, I think, for the Three Rivers, based on that they've both reached out. We've heard reports, from WRMJ and various sources that they have reached out to the TRAC showing interest. We'll start with Alleman.
Mm-hmm.
Alleman reached out, exploring the possibility of making the move. But as of right now, the league did not accept them. So that's kind of seems to be like a dead end at this immediate point.
And I wonder if that is because maybe Alleman was upfront about their football aspirations for this year. You know what I mean? Maybe they came out and said, look, we'd like to join you. We're not going to have a football team. So maybe that was just like, okay, let's wait. I don't know. I'm not speaking any more than what makes logical sense to me. But yeah, that could have been part of why the TRAC shot it down.
Yeah. But I will say ultimately they seem like a great fit enrollment wise. 329 right now is what I see on IHSA's website. But, it goes without saying that smaller rural schools hear the name Alleman, the private school in the heart of the Metro Quad Cities, it's generally not received as a good fit. Would you agree that there's just some, I would think there's just some hesitancy because they assume that it's big bad Alleman. The Allemans of old, like we referenced at the beginning of the show, like they're a far cry from that. They're a far cry from when they were competing at the top of the Western Big Six standings and making those trips to Champaign. And I think there's still maybe that perception that, Alleman would be this bigger entity or the, big school playing in the Three Rivers, but that's not reality anymore. The enrollment doesn't say that, and the results recently have not said that either. So
if anything, it's a traditional name that you would be bringing into the conference, right? It's still Alleman. Everyone knows Alleman, regardless of what the record on the football field is. I still believe that potential for Alleman is there. They're just in a tough spot right now. But, talking about private schools in the track, you've got Newman there. So there is a fit. I wouldn't say that I agree with that rural schools would be like, no, not Alleman. I don't think that would be a reason.
Yeah, I don't know. You mentioned maybe they possibly had let the Three Rivers know that they weren't going to compete in football this upcoming season. I hadn't thought about that aspect, but what I did think about was, do you think if Alleman would be in the track, playing schools the size, enrollment that live in the Three Rivers, would they have tried to play a varsity schedule this year? Because there's, the teams in the Western Big Six have so much more depth,
right? I still don't think so, because I don't remember what they said on their press release, or even if they did, but it was like 17 or something, or it might have even been less than that. And that's even coming off of this season where they had to find kids to make up the team. All the credit to them for doing that and putting a team on the field this past season. But I don't know if the numbers thing was so much that we're going up against these big schools. Certainly that plays, a factor. But regardless, whether you're playing a full slate of 1A teams, if you're still competing with 15 kids, that's tough. So, hard to say what again goes into those decisions. But I don't think it would have mattered. I don't think, even if the track would have said yes, that they would not have played in football this year.
Yeah. I think, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and if they ever do revisit that vote and what Three Rivers conference members decide to do with a school like Alleman.
Conversely, too, what would the Western Big Six do?
That's a great question. Yep.
Do they get a Quincy Notre Dame? Do they look at, I don't know, in the Quad Cities, you could reach out so far to get into that conference. But I hadn't really thought of that either. If Alleman left, who would fill that spot in the Western Big Six? That would be interesting. That would be super interesting to see who they would look at.
Yeah, I mean, the Quincy Notre Dame is an interesting thought, but I don't know if they're big enough to want to compete year in and year out, in football and in everything else. I don't know. I don't know.
Be a great basketball addition. They're really good at basketball too.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a pretty solid program all the way around, I think. And I think over the years they've struggled to find a good fit because, Quincy's kind of in a weird spot to try to find a good conference home.
What conference is Quincy Notre Dame in?
I knew you were going to ask, and I know it's changed. I think they were independent for a while.
Okay. I don't think they are.
Yeah, well, hold on. We'll see, Mitch. Let's we're going as live here. No editing.
And while you're doing that, I'm still trying to geographically think who
they were in. They were independent last year.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Again, and, with you being in that Quad City metro area, like you could pull in so many different teams from, certainly not going west, but you could pull teams from north, east, and south to come in. So that would be an interesting thing if Alleman were to leave.
Form a big Metro Quad Cities super conference across the river. Let's get Illinois and Iowa talking to each other.
Look, this is an Illinois show.
It would never.
Iowa football would never stand a chance.
There you go.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
So yeah, lots of questions surrounding that. The other school we've talked about, Mercer County. Mercer County also expressed interest, informal interest. They also, I think, would be a potential great fit.
This is great.
And they'd almost be the great fit for the opposite reason, because currently they're the biggest school in the Lincoln Trail, sitting at 377. The next biggest school is Knoxville. So whereas Alleman's the smallest school in the Western Big Six, looking to find a better fit, I think Mercer County would be a good fit in the TRAC, because year in and year out, they're playing kind of a 1A schedule in the traditional Lincoln Trail. To get them up into 2A, 3A competition, I think would do them well.
Yeah. This would be a tremendous ad for the TRAC. And we just talked about too, and we will more here in a second, with the Lincoln Trail and the Prairie Land merging.
Yep.
There's a lot going on there. And I think that conference would be able to survive a Merco leaving, if that's what the TRAC wanted to do, and that's what Mercer County wanted to do. So yeah, with their recent success in sports, and football especially, it's a great addition. Obviously, going back to the Alito years brings in a lot of history to the TRAC, a lot more championships into the historic lure of the Three Rivers Conference. So yeah, I would be really excited and to see Mercer County join the TRAC if that was what they wanted to do and what the TRAC wanted to do.
Yep. So like we referenced, it would bring the Golden Eagles it would bring the Golden Eagles potentially in the TRAC more 2A, 3A competition. But that being said, we have the Lincoln Trail and the Prairie Land merger, which is naturally bringing, we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's big schools and small schools dividing up amongst the Lincoln Trail and the Prairie Land. So that's naturally going to bring them a, bigger enrollment schedule anyway. So
let me lay this on you here. And I don't want to start spreading rumors. I'm just saying this as
here we go.
As we're talking about it. What would you think of an Anawan Wethersfield joining the TRAC?
That's an interesting one.
Anawan's right by, so on the other side of Prophetstown, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So geographically, you're there.
Yep. That's interesting.
They play 1A.
Yep.
So enrollment's right there.
Now the only the thing I would say is that in other sports, I guess in basketball, where Anawan and Wethersfield play independent,
Erie Prophetstown does too.
I don't think anymore. I don't think so.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think
Am I that old that they don't anymore? Okay.
I think it's a recent change, but yeah.
Okay.
They'd be pretty small, in terms of the TRAC. Okay. But geographically, they'd be a great fit. Yeah, okay. I think I gotta think.
Spitballing here.
Okay, I love it.
Spitballing.
I gotta think they're happy in the LTC. They seem like a prime member right in the mix.
Right. I jumped ahead. Do you want to talk about some non-conference games in the TRAC first before we get to that?
Yes, we absolutely should, because we have some good ones here. So
we talked about Princeton and Sterling in week 5. We talked about Geneseo and Mendota in week 7.
Yep.
And I'm seeing some of these for the first time. So you've got Kewanee, 4A Kewanee. They're going to host Aurora Central Catholic, traditional playoff team. Don't fare too well when they get to the playoffs, but nonetheless, a 1A team. You've got Spring Valley Hall hosting IVC. Riverdale is going to fill their schedule.
You were thinking of Aurora Christian. Aurora Central Catholic.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Aurora Central Catholic is the Chargers. They were 2-7 a year ago. So
full disclosure, I don't know anything about Aurora Central Catholic.
There you go. I won't hold it against you.
Hall will host IVC. Riverdale will host Dupo. Sherrard is going to go to Warrensburg Latham. And then the big one that we just learned about, Greg, really excited about this one. Rock Ridge is going to Ridgeview Lexington. That's a game.
Yeah, that's a great matchup. I believe it's in week 2.
Week 2.
Yep. Now, what I will say is it's week 2. It's a great matchup, but we would have had the potential for Mercer County, who's looking for a week 2 opponent, and Rock Ridge to play each other. That would have been a fun one as well.
Yep.
But we get a good small school matchup here. Rock Ridge and Ridgeview Lexington. Ridgeview Lexington went to the semifinals a couple years ago, and I believe went to the quarters last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other way around. Semis last year, quarters the year before when they lost to Lena.
I think they lost to Lena in the semis.
I don't remember, but yeah, a good team, a good 1A team. They had. I don't remember what that kid's name was. Farrell was their running back. I don't know what year he is.
Caden Farrell.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know fully what Rock Ridge and what the Mustangs bring back, but that matchup again, two really good teams, year in and year out. So yeah, week 2, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the Lincoln Trail Prairie Land merger. So, like we referenced, the Golden Eagles, they may not have to go to the track to find those 2A, 3A, or bigger schools. The Lincoln Trail and Prairie Land are merging together. Mitch, I'd like to welcome you to the Lincoln Land Conference, the LLC.
Yeah, that's what Lincoln always wanted. He wanted his own LLC to call his own. So
this conference is all business, Mitch.
Yeah, it sure is. It's probably got some tax exemptions too, but yeah, this is great. We're adding in a lot of new teams to cover, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We don't quite know what the scheduling is going to look like just yet. There's going to be crossover there.
I have some info. So teams will play one interdivision game per season. The large squads, the large schools, which get into that in a second, they'll need to find one non-conference league game per season to fill their schedule. So
right, because
small school side will
large school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So you won't see, I guess, a ton, but we will. So we'll have to get into the uniforms on those large schools. We'll have to really dig into that. But teams that we're not totally non-familiar with, right? We've seen Elmwood, Brimsfield before, Farmington, West Hancock, Macomb, Illini West, Lewiston. We've all seen those games before, so this is a good merger, and good for both sides here.
Yeah, I think it's great for the small schools to not have to worry about those crossover Prairie Land games with potentially, Farmington, Elmwood, Brimfield, Macomb on the larger end of things, and it really. It levels the playing field a little bit when, United, Stark County, down the list, they can play schools like Rushville, Havana, South Fulton.
Yeah.
They're all playing equal enrollment schools or close to it, which is great.
Yeah. So then how will this work will they determine a small school champion and a large school champion and they'll both get automatic bids?
I'm guessing that they're considered like two separate conferences.
Yeah,
almost.
Just like a lot of the Chicago conferences do. Okay. Got it. Okay.
So let's go through the list here. The small school side will be Monmouth United, Stark County, Princeville, Roval Williamsfield, Anawan Weathersfield, A-Town, Rushville, Havana, and South Fulton. So that's mainly.
I already got a favorite.
Okay. That is a majority of the traditional Lincoln Trail Conference.
Right.
On the other side of things, the large schools, you'll have Mercer County and Knoxville. They're the other two that were the traditional Lincoln Trail teams, along with Elmwood, Brimfield, Farmington, West Hancock, Macomb, Lewiston, North Fulton, and Illini West. So interesting conference that is being formed on that large school side. It does bring some pretty good competition. Macomb was a really good team a year ago. And you talk about Elmwood, Brimfield, and Farmington usually are pretty competitive, especially Farmington's been really good recently, and Mercer County and Knoxville.
Yeah, I think Macomb was undefeated until they lost in the playoff. But we talked a second ago how Merco and Knoxville were the two largest in the Lincoln Trail. Do you know where they fit on the large school scale now?
So I think I don't have it right in front of me. I could look and see.
I mean, just looking at it, I'm sure Macomb and Farmington are higher than them, but like Illini West, I don't think has. I can't imagine they're over 400. I bet they're maybe in the middle, maybe towards the smaller end of those.
So what did we say? Mercer County is 377.
Yeah, Knoxville is 360.
And you got enrollments. Illini West is 315. Elmwood Brimfield is 426. Farmington's 410. West Hancock 345. Lewiston is just over 400. Macomb's the big one at 600.
Okay.
So yeah, they're
right there
in the mix.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, they're in the mix.
Yep.
And I do think overall it's a better fit, better fit for them. And we should mention Knoxville would be a great fit for the Three Rivers Conference as well, had they not just made the move a few years ago to the Lincoln Trail.
Right.
I think Knoxville would have fit right into with the, with the TRAC. But
you know what? Then you think, hey, Cincinnati's in the Big 12 now, so nothing makes sense. So whatever, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters at all.
That's true.
USC is in the Big 10. Who cares?
There are no rules, and everything's made up. So
let's just make it up.
Yep.
So
all right,
we talked about earlier. Murco then has a week 2 open, right?
They do.
Okay.
Yep. And I have not heard anything about that one yet. So.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know who was supposed to play. I guess. Oh, it was supposed to be Rockridge. I was just going to say who was supposed to play St. Bede, but we just referenced Rockridge had that week open. So.
Well, you know what? And we can talk about this now or not, but we were talking earlier off the show about what ICCP is dealing with this year. I know they were looking for a week 2 opponent. I should reach out to them and see.
Oh wow! Okay. You've kind of become buddies with them.
Okay, let's get into it. We're not going to sympathize with ICCP, but we've talked a lot about them on the show.
Yep.
They moved to the CCL Orange or something.
Okay.
Last I knew, they had weeks 1 and 2 open,
and
weeks 3 through 9 were against like the defending 7A champ, the defending 5A champ or something, the 6A runner-up. Like, as much as we've talked about IC Catholic on this show in a negative way, they're getting absolutely hosed in this new format, and they're going to play. They very well, Greg, could be 5 and 4, go into 3A and win state, no question about it.
Yeah,
they're going to play absolute like bangers of teams in the Chicago League.
You sent me that text a few months ago.
Yeah,
and I think I immediately texted you. Don't make me feel bad for IC Catholic, but it is a gauntlet. You've kind of become buddies with them now.
Look, I can respect how good they are.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I disagree with the class that they would play in, but I can also agree that the CCL really put them to task. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because they're the new kid on the block, right? They're the new team in the conference, so they probably inevitably
but again, I don't think that they won't get into the playoffs, and I don't think that they won't be a favorite and possibly even the top seed.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? You see a number 1 IC Catholic and they're 5 and 4. It would make sense.
No, I think they'd probably be the lower rated seed, and they'd have to go up against a team that thinks they're a top seed, and then they got to play IC Catholic.
Right. They would either be like, in like Kyle's ranking wise, be number 1.
Sure.
But in the seeding, they'd be like a 16 and have to play the 1 seed and just dominate. So yeah. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, Mitch, should we jump into the Northwest Upstate Illini?
Yeah.
We got some hardware, some academic hardware coming home.
Yeah.
Mitch, you found this one.
I did find this one, and then I'll speak on this one, and then I have a secondary thing for you. So the National Football Foundation named Forreston as Illinois Class 1A team for academic excellence. So congrats to the Cardinals on that. Geneseo was also the Class 4A recipient. So yeah, we like to see that two schools from our area getting recognized for their success off the field. But did you see that Forreston put out a poll a couple weeks ago of retro helmets that they had?
I did.
Which one did you vote on?
I think I voted on the black helmet.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yep.
I saw that had gotten the most votes. And so if you're trying to think in your head, it's like the Ball State Cardinal.
Yeah, that's kind of the logo they've used. Yep.
Yeah, it's a black helmet with a large bird on the side of it. Look, I like their helmet now. I like that bird though. So maybe the gears are turning there for us. I don't know.
I would say, Coach Janicki, if you're listening, the View from the West podcast proudly would
Approve.
support the black. Yep, proudly approves the black helmet as Mitch pounds his desk and his phone almost falls over. And
but for now, hey, congrats to all their hard work on the academic. Great year for them on the field and off. So congrats to the Cardinals.
All right. Well, some news from Stockton. They have approved the hire of their next football coach, Sean Downey. He takes over the Blackhawk program. He's a familiar name. He's served as the offensive coordinator for Stockton and for Eastland Pearl City. He helped guide the Wildcats to 4 conference titles and the 2014 state championship. That's a good resume because that EPC team in 2014 was really tough. That was a really good football team.
Even leading up to that in years prior, EPC, they had years where they had quarterbacks who just threw the ball all over the field. So, yeah, this is a great hire. As I've said before, I'm a big fan of the Stockton program. Love the field there. Love the uniforms up there. So, yeah, this is an exciting time. They've been down. I expect Coach Downey to come in, shake some things up, and we'll see the Blackhawks back near the top of those standings here with his resume.
Yep. Well, Mitch, I'll let you take over here. You've been doing your homework, talking to Kyle Campmeyer from NUICfootball.com, and you got some.
That's where my homework stops. Is just sending Kyle a text. He's the one doing all the legwork.
Well, I'll give you both credit. Yeah.
So we'll get into it on a large scale here, but let's talk about this. We tweeted this out on Championship Friday after the 2A game. Once St. Teresa won, that it was official that we were going to have the defending 1A and the defending 2A state champions play in the regular season. We've known about this game for a little while. I think Coach Ahrens tweeted it out during the season. I think we've known about it for a while. So a combined 110-8 in the last 5 years. Just 2 of the very best programs in the state of Illinois going to go against each other in the regular season in week, I don't remember, 7, I think. So, game of the year already on my list, right? With Princeton Sterling in terms of out of conference games. So this will be an absolute great game.
So every team in the NUIC has to fill one from the 11-man contingent has to fill one non-conference game. So what are you seeing? What do we got?
Sure. So we'll start off with Dakota coming off a playoff year. They're going to start off with Fisher, home of the greatest football helmet in the history of football helmets. Didn't play last year. We're hopeful again that they're going to have a 11-man team this year. Sounds like they are. So we'll have a great helmet there. That game is in Fisher. Going to Stockton, aforementioned, they just scheduled a game with Hayworth. West Carroll has a week 3 open. It still shows open. Not sure if they found a game there yet. Galena is open in week 4. This was one of those that we tried to play matchmaker on with Newman. But I believe I haven't seen who it is. I think Galena has an out-of-state opponent set up. So maybe somebody from Wisconsin set up for that week. Haven't seen too much, but they apparently did fill that. Then you get into week. Let's see, this is week. And you know what? I was completely wrong on my weeks. Let me restart.
Okay.
The Dakota Fisher game is week 1. No, I was right. Stockton.
Now I'm confused.
Okay. No, I was right. I'm blaming Kyle. Stockton has theirs with Hayworth week 2. West Carroll has their last game. Their week 9 game is open.
Okay.
Go to week 4. That was Galena, the schedule with out of state. Then you get to week 5. That's Lee Win, St. Teresa. St. Teresa actually stays in the conference and plays EPC in week 6. In week 7, you'll have Forreston at home against GCMS.
Okay.
Week 8, great crossover here with Fulton and Knoxville. That'll be fun. And then in week 9, it'll be Dupec playing Althoff Catholic. That'll also be a really, really fun game to end the season with.
Yeah, really intriguing matchup there, Dupec and Althoff. And, it's almost becoming a tradition now with Gibson City, Melvin, Sibley, and Forreston. They've played, I believe this will be the 3rd year in a row that they've played each other. So that's, kind of a unique rivalry formed there. And what was the other one you mentioned? The other name I heard in there? Eastland Pearls, or it's St. Teresa staying in and playing Eastland Pearl City the following week. So
yeah,
speaks highly of the Northwest Upstate Illini. If a team like St. Teresa, you assume they want to be tested, and they're coming into the UIC to get that test. So
yep, no better way to find it, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mitch. Well, let's talk some 8-man football here. We got some news coming out of Acwin High School. They have announced their head coach will be Todd Kramer. He's returning to the sidelines for the Bulldogs. He was the head coach from 09 to 14, had a lot of success, 48-16, a conference title, 6 playoff appearances, a state semifinal appearance in 2011. So, quite the resume. I believe he's the athletic director at Acwin. So back on the sidelines to lead them, it seems like a good fit.
Yeah, seems like a good fit. Acwin has certainly been a great program for a long time. So getting a familiar face in there could continue that tradition. But Greg, we just kind of came across some not breaking news, but maybe some news that maybe not a lot of folks know about just yet, and then maybe times are turning here.
Yeah, so I had not heard. I'm just seeing a report on WIFR TV out of Rockford. Orangeville has been having discussions for a potential football co-op with Acwin. So I know that Orangeville really struggled last year in 8-man after having a banner year the year before, making it to the 8-man state championship game. But they struggled a year ago. It's an interesting potential deal there. I don't know.
Yeah, and the article doesn't really say if they would have enough to get back into 11-man or if they would remain 8-man. So yeah, that is certainly an interesting idea. Something that we hadn't, like you said, hadn't really heard yet. So we'll have to reach out to Kyle and see what he knows about it. But yeah, it's interesting. No question about it. And it goes back to what we said at the beginning of the show. Things like this are always going to be on the table, right? There are going to be more instances of this happening. And this, again, whether it happens or not, they're talking about it.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what plays out. We'll keep, we'll keep up on Twitter and obviously be talking to Kyle and see.
We're monitoring the situation.
Exactly. That's right.
So we'll leave it at that.
That's right. Well, when we're talking about 8-man football, it won't take long for us to get exciting matchups next season.
Yeah.
Talk about, is it Decatur Lutheran and Amboy in week 1?
Yeah. Amboy hosts that game. So a week 1 game between 2 of the best 8-man teams in the state. Could be a championship game preview, Greg, right? In week 1.
Yeah, it would be interesting if they played in the first game of the year and the last game of the year. There's certainly potential for that. We really liked what we had in Amboy a year ago, and they bring a lot back. So we'll see how it all plays out. But that one will be a lot of fun right in week 1. Well, Mitch, let's talk before we end this episode. We had some big Division I signings, some Big Ten action coming, commitments from our area. Tegan Davis from Princeton. He had originally been committed to Eastern Illinois. He flipped and ended up going to Iowa. So I believe he'll be playing on the defensive side of the ball. But congratulations to Tegan Davis. I mean, overall, just a great athlete, having a great basketball season right now as we speak. But getting that Big Ten offer, and he jumped at it going to Iowa.
Yeah, one of our favorite athletes to cover the past couple of seasons. So, well-deserved. Great landing spot for him, right? So excited to see what he can do at the next level. Yeah.
And then we have 2 commitments to Illinois from our area. Mac Rasetich from Hall, Spring Valley Hall. This was a really interesting one because he had been committed to Blackhawk College to play baseball in the Quad Cities. And again, another great athlete, basketball player, baseball player, football player. But I really think his senior year, he kind of burst on the scene football wise and really, made a name for himself. He already obviously had an impressive resume, but I think his senior year stats really, jumped off the page. So credit to Mac Rasetich for getting that offer and going to Illinois.
Yeah, well, Brad Bielema's not going to let a good track athlete out of his sight. So
Yep.
you know, a kudos to him really, because to Coach Bielema, I mean, because
Yeah.
I always felt that Matt Krasevich, I don't know what offers he had, right? But
Yep.
I always felt that this was an opportunity, or a school like Illinois should have been waiting for an athlete like him. So good to see that come to fruition. We wish him the best of luck. And again, another one of the most exciting players that we covered, certainly this last season.
Yep. The other Division I, or the other Illinois commit, Henry Engel, the standout from Lena Winslow, as Kyle Kampmeyer put it best, from 1A to D1. So
yeah, right.
That's a cool story.
And another Leewin Panther to make that jump to 1A, right? They had a couple that went to Iowa in recent years. So just production just keeps churning. With that said, too, these are three that we mentioned. There's been a lot. So
absolutely.
Not to take away from anybody. But we've seen a lot of local commitments to Ambrose, to Augie. But that leads me to my point, Greg, that I texted you about this.
Yeah.
And this is your chance to shine.
Okay.
So we had some Sterling athletes commit to Augustana
University.
Yep. And then we had some other athletes commit to Augustana College.
Yes, correct.
Now, in my entire life,
yes,
I have never understood how there is an Augustana University in South Dakota and an Augustana College in Illinois that share the same name, image, and likeness, to use a common phrase.
Yeah.
Same color scheme, almost the same logos, same nickname, same school name. You seem to know the answer to this question, so I'm putting the spotlight on you. Please explain to me how there are two Augustana
how there are two Augustanas.
Higher education schools. Yeah. Set me straight on this.
Well, yeah. Okay. So it is a bit confusing, but they are Augustana University, whereas in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, in Rock Island, it is Augustana College. They are both the Vikings. They are both blue and gold.
Yep.
Yes, it is very confusing. If technically they all started in the same play, they all formed, both schools were merged together. Well, they all started together, and then at some point they split off, and I don't know. However, the Lutherans decided to split, and the Swedish, school became Augustana College in Rock Island.
Sure. 1860, right?
They formed in 1860.
Okay,
correct.
So at some point in like 1859, they were like, "You go here, we're going here," and they formed two schools in different parts of the Midwest.
Okay, so I believe the Norwegian faction moved to South Dakota, and it was the Swedes came to Rock Island.
Yeah, you forget about the Norwegian contingent in the 1850s in the area, so yeah, that makes sense. Well, great. I've never understood that. Full disclosure, when I saw those commitments, I was like, man, Augie, they are really getting some good commitments, right? Yeah. And then I looking at it, I'm like, nope, that's the other one. Okay, so
yeah, well, they both are getting good commitments, just not all the same place.
Of course, I thought they were all going to Rock Island. So, but as we mentioned, South Dakota Augie D2, bigger schools, great opportunity for those commitments. So. Yeah, but I never understood how those two schools coexisted.
So as someone who used to work in the marketing department at Augustana College, it would drive us crazy when people would mistakenly use the Augustana University Vikings logo, which is a different, kind of more aggressive looking, logo. It's same colors, obviously, like we just said.
More Norwegian, yeah.
Oh, sure, certainly more Norwegian.
Right.
Yeah.
You can see it right in the face.
Although I'm Norwegian, and I don't think I ever looked that angry. Not like that.
No, I've never. Yeah, I've never seen you coach baseball, so I don't know.
That's true. That's true. I may look like that Viking when I coach. That's a good point. So, all right. Well, there's your history lesson of Swedish and Norwegian heritage. Yeah. So.
Wonderful. So you get, it's a jack of all trades here on Dude from the West. So now you know.
You learn a little bit of everything, or not much at all. Who knows?
Or nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Well, Mitch, before we tie a bow on this episode and wrap it up, finish it up, the state championship games are headed back to Illinois State. I don't know that we've talked about this yet.
No, I think we probably talked about it on the wrap-up show on Championship Friday about the future of where those games are going to be played, and I don't remember who all put in bids. If it was Champaign, if it was DeKalb, if it was Eastern, if it was Southern.
I think Southern put a bid in. Yep.
Okay, it's just it's a bad beat for Southern, being as far away as they are. So, yeah, getting back to Illinois State, they got a great facility there, nice, central location. Is there a correlation when games were played in DeKalb that teams from the North typically won? I don't know, but certainly evens out the travel for teams. Certainly coming from the South, right? That's a haul to get up. Even to Champaign, that's a haul from teams in the South. So yeah, this is a good a good mix for teams. Great facility, and we saw some pictures, old school pictures of, I think it was, Joliet Catholic and somebody back in the day playing on the Illinois State turf. So this will be a lot of fun for a new-ish, right? New but old location to cover championship games. So yeah, excited to see it.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit geographically, but also being that they've upgraded their facilities since the last time they were there. It's much different than it was the previous times that they hosted. So I think it's a great move, and I'm excited to get to Bloomington Normal and have
a change of scenery, and it'll be good.
Yep. All right. Well, Mitch, next week we're talking about the best ofs, the best in the West, our third awards episode. You ready to break down the best coaches, players, teams?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to have to either look back at old score episodes or listen back to old shows of ours, or just find old articles just to kind of jog the memories of things that we saw. So, but a lot of it's still fresh. So yeah, looking forward to, again, even though we're into February now, it's fun to kind of go back, right? That was months ago. Kind of fun to go back and talk about it before we officially say our goodbyes to the seniors of that class. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to it.
Mitch, until then, we will have a good week and study up, do your research.
That sounds good. We'll talk to you next week.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.